how do you visualize AI today, AI chatbots? Now, Siri doesn't have a face, and we don't want it to have a face. Like we never, that doesn't, it's not a robot, right? And you see in the classic, everyone's talking about AI as robots, the robot metaphor. I'm getting tired of robots. So how do
Robots
we,
and things like attached to your brain somehow.
yeah, like chips or something, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. So,
yeah.
but I think of AI in terms of the cultural background where we came from is essentially like this guy, Max Headroom, or this guy, the bow tie guy. I don't know if you guys recognize the bow tie guy. He's the
It's,
Knowledge Navigator video from 1987, and where Apple basically has this concept video that shows a talking Siri on a iPad that doesn't exist, on an internet that doesn't exist. It's amazing. And the Max Headroom was, you guess you'd have to be a generation before, but really get that he was this, he was talking head too. And then this image on so I wanted to capture these cultural references, and these aren't robots, right? But then this guy on the right, this is an artist's puppet, for a figure drawing. But
and
I
it's a
saw
wooden, and just for those who aren't seeing it, so it's a wooden like marionette kind of puppet.
exactly like those things where there's wooden puppets you can make any shape.
Mm-hmm.
But this is actually a stock image, and the stock image artist had come up with the idea of cutting the top of the head off and showing that the puppet's head is actually hollow. And then drew a little like the puppet's like, I don't really know what's going on in my head kind of face.
Okay.
So I love that metaphor. So then I was trying to, but that's just a puppet, doesn't quite capture it. So then I asked, working with GPT, working with the designer, iterating over 100 or so examples, we came up with this idea, which was how to make a kind of humanoid type thing that isn't a robot, that is organic and wood, and has the references to bow tie guy and accent room and so on in a modern computing setting. And so once we came up with this concept wasn't in any of our heads. But we kept giving text prompts and having machine generate images until we start seeing early versions of this. And then we refined it and refined it and refined it. I mean, no human has ever made that picture before, right? And then once we had the concept, we said, what does it mean to illustrate how do you train the LLMs? Well, it's the baby puppet sitting in a library, very large library, reading all day long. And then when it grows up, what does it look like? Well, he's sitting at a desk, always in the library, because it's really based on human legacy. So this was so much fun to see how it was a partner. It was literally adding ideas that like a good designer would have added. Yeah. And so anyway, I'm really psyched about this journey. And then once you had the metaphor, now we can apply it. So this whole idea of humanistic AI, what does it mean to have AI in your workforce? Well, now we can just say, well, take that robot idea or that puppet idea and apply it with the student or the draftsman or the people in a meeting. And now we have a new metaphor that we can work with.
What you're seeing in these images is it's much more human. It's a collaborator. It's a extension, a partner. It's not a intimidating, all-knowing piece of technology.
Exactly. In fact, it's always either looking over your shoulder or looking as a peer. And then the final problem I wanted to solve was how do I visualize a compassionate, nurturing kind of coach partner, which and I came up with this. So here's a human, there's the AI. The AI has to be smaller. It has to be very smooth and unpretentious, but sitting in this, where for those who can see, it's the AI sitting in kind of a lotus seated position, facing a human who's also seated in a lotus position. The human's larger, and the AI is focused. The eye gaze of the AI is focusing right on the eyes of the human. These are all these little details that you can now say in text, and iterate, and have it build the reference for you. And when we landed on this, we're like, we got it. This is the AI. I can imagine having this in my living room and not be intimidated.
And it's so this truly shifts my expectation about how to think about these tools. I feel like much more of a partnership. Can you say more though so what is going on in the quote unquote mind of this collaborator?
Yeah, that's a good, and there is only a kind of figurative mind. There's really no sentience, and there's no real self-awareness or anything like that. It is essentially a puppet that is doing the language game that we ask it to do.
Yeah.
But one way of thinking about it, now the image generation is slightly different than language generation. Image generation is kind of like we've given it all these examples of images, and now we understand the words associated with, and then we can sort of learn the association between words and images. But and this is very profound because it's given so many images, which are all human creation. In the case of language, it's even more unintuitive how powerful the generalizations are, but still it doesn't have a mind. I'll show you an image. In
Yeah,
fact, we
show me.
take that same metaphor again, back to our wooden puppet, but now it looks like something you might find in the Museum of Natural History or Mount Honor, or something like a museum piece. Isn't it amazing? AI came up with that. But the idea here is a metaphor of a language savant. So these are brilliant, genius at language games. They're AGI for fiction. They can generate language, create like crazy, but they literally do not know. They architecturally do not have any way to know what they're talking about.
That's so fascinating. No strategy,
Yeah.
like they don't understand what is true. No idea of what is true.
No epistemology. You say, why is that true?
Mhm.
And I have examples we don't need to go into today, but I have all these examples of what they call
Mhm.
hallucination, where you literally say, give me some answers, and you say, well, why is that fact? What's the evidence to support that fact or that statement? And then in the very next part of the conversation, the chatbot will say, oh, actually, that's not a fact. That's not true at all. There's no evidence at all for it.
So this is important
Yeah.
to understand. Okay, so I'm going to move to our last topic before we open up to questions. And this is really about the skills you need as a human to get the most out of these tools. And I appreciate you took us on this mental model and to kind of help us understand the epistemology of how to think of these, because it really then, so it brings up, so what are the skills that I
Oh,
need
yeah.
as a human to get the most out of these things? And so like I hear a lot of people talking about they're focused on learning how to do good prompt engineering or how to just automate. But I think you have a different belief in what are the skills that we need as humanity with these tools. Can you tell me more?
Yeah, that's a really good thing. I put up these words on the slide, but
Uh-huh.
the big insight here is you look ahead a little bit. Yeah, prompt
Yep.
engineering is kind of a tactical thing, but really
Yeah.
what's going to happen is we will all have a team of AI agents working for us. All right, they're just software. They're cheap to deploy. Everyone's going to have a team, and the new skill will be how to manage a team where they're going to hallucinate, they're going to contradict each other. They're really good for things like brainstorming, but they're not so good at just oracles of truth, right? So it's critical thinking. When one of the agents comes back, hey, boss, I got this. I think the answer is X, and you go, wait a minute, doesn't. Are you sure? Why do you think that? Well, let's explore that. So that's critical, like you might do with a student if you're mentoring a student,
Yeah.
or
A
clarity
creative
of goals.
team.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, a creative team. How do you say, well, hey, team, we're gonna. In fact, the ideal way of doing brainstorming is you actually literally you say, hey, AI1, your role is X. AI2, your role is B. Like you take the skeptic, you take the creative, whatever it is, and then you say play all your roles. But now, if you are running an IDEO session with all those creatives, and you deliberately made it diverse because you know that's going to improve the outcome, you also have to be extra good at managing all those opinions and
Yeah.
bringing them back in.
Yeah.
And then the final point is mutual learning. Essentially,
Mm.
you know how with Google 20 something years
Mhm.
ago, we used to type 1 or 2 words in and we get sort of a page back.
And
But
then you have
now
to spend a lot of work like filtering out which one should I tune into.
exactly. And then we kind of co-evolved with Google. We started having queries that were longer and longer and longer. We started being more explicit about what we were trying to ask for. And Google actually stepped up and did more work to make sure that those queries were well satisfied. So that is going to happen with AI. We are rapidly co-evolving. Just yesterday, Apple announced that they're going to be sending queries to OpenAI. And the big prize for OpenAI is they're going to get this amazing treasure trove of human queries. Nobody really knows at scale what humans want to know from these things. And now they'll start to see that. And so the AI models will then be able to respond to what humans are asking. And then humans are going to know that, oh, the AIs can give us certain kinds of information or help. So then they're going to change what they ask for and so on. And that co-evolution will happen in the near future. And that's going to be really fun. But remember, it's a very fast moving wave we're on here. And we need to stay on top of this because otherwise it's going to just swamp us.